Welcome back. You're watching Straight Talk. Professor Golub, China. We've had some horror reports, if I want to call it that, about Trump arguing for, he's backed off from those strong talk against China in recent days. But we've had reports that Mr. Bannon earlier had talked of a war with China in the next few years. Is this something? Is this just, kite flying? What is it? What do we read into this?
Well, that's a good question. It could be that Bannon, for all of his flaws and all of his prejudices, might have just been not talking straight, but talking big himself. I don't think that Trump really will consider a war with China, perhaps a trade war, but not an actual physical confrontation. Having said that, it could be that they'll be bumping heads. The US and China will be bumping heads on all sorts of issues in days and months and years to come, and some of them could get somewhat dangerous. I'll say this on the other hand. Trump's Secretary of State, his Secretary of Defense, other advisors may be more moderating influences on him, be it regarding China, be it regarding a whole host of issues around the world. There is a real irony here in that the nickname of Trump's Secretary of Defense is Mad Dog. So one of the more moderating influences on Donald Trump could be a person whose nickname is Mad Dog. Nevertheless, even though he may have some aggressive foreign policy views himself, that new secretary may make sure that this notion of a war of civilizations between the US and China, or the US and other forces or societies, does not come to pass. Let's at least hope so.
So what happened to the one China policy that Trump backed off from, at least for a while? Did somebody advise him, and is this something that he thought of? Did he read something somewhere?
It could be that it was Bannon's influence, but one report that I saw was that the former US Senator and presidential candidate Robert Dole, who was working as a lobbyist, got Trump's ear on the part of the government of the Republic of China, or Taiwan, and persuaded him to take a phone call, or to get into a phone call with the head of that republic, the head of Taiwan, and made some compromising statements. Then other advisors got Trump's ear to back off from that and to endorse the one China policy, which is an absolute top priority of China. And these advisors persuaded Trump that this is not in the US interest to get into bumping heads, antagonizing China, at least at this point, over this issue. But it could be an indication of Trump's style, and I am speculating here that some of his policy pronouncements and decisions may not flow from his own intuitions and intellect, but whoever has his ear at a given moment regarding a given issue.
So say regarding his key circle of advisors, Bannon obviously is a key advisor. But who are the others? Whom does he listen to closely?
His son-in-law will have a big influence over him. His son-in-law is actually an official advisor and has probably the strongest personal relationship with Trump of any advisors. His daughter, Ivanka, even though she doesn't have an official position, has sat in on some significant meetings with foreign leaders. His chief of staff, who's the former head of the Republican Party, is influential, but we don't know how influential. Some of his cabinet appointees, such as the Secretary of State and Defense or Treasury, will have influence. These things are still in play and evolving, but those are some of the main actors who have his ear, and I'm not even getting to people outside of his family circle. We do have an unusual amount of influence by immediate family members, and it's one of many ways in which Trump's presidency stands out from others where family members might have had the president's ear, but not to the same extent, not in the same ongoing official and unofficial way.
So is this something which the American public would be comfortable with?
It's hard to say, because many people, including myself, would have guessed that the American public would have been extremely uncomfortable with things that Trump did and said in the past. Trump came out during the presidential campaign and accused John McCain, a leading Republican senator, of being a loser for being captured during the Vietnam War, for being a prisoner of war. When he did that, it wasn't just Democrats and progressives, it was Republicans and conservatives who said, this guy has killed his own campaign. There's no way he could go on from here. He might as well bow out now. Lo and behold, it didn't alienate that many people. People liked his blunt, straight-talking, supposedly straight-talking style, and he went on from there. He's also said and done many other things. Forgive my being so blunt here myself, but he was caught bragging on video about grabbing women in their private parts and getting away with it. And even though that caused him to temporarily take a dip in the polls, lo and behold, he was elected president. So it's hard to say what will and won't hurt Trump going forward. Experts have been proven wrong again and again. Republican and Democrat, all sorts of intellectuals and pundits have been proven wrong. We are, in some respects, on a new playing field, and we're still figuring it out. And he, to some extent, is dictating the rules of that playing field.
So who could be his key advisor on an issue like, say, terrorism, Pakistan, Afghanistan? We haven't heard very much from him either during the campaign or as president.
There's a reasonable chance that Steve Bannon, his chief strategist, political strategist, may be a key advisor on terrorism. What is a political strategist doing, advising the President of the United States on terrorism? I don't know, but the reason that I'm doing more than speculating here is that he's appointed Steve Bannon, his chief strategist, to the National Security Council. That's never been done before, not by Barack Obama, not by the first George Bush, the second George Bush, Bill Clinton, you name it. A political advisor has always had huge influence, but not on key confidential national security issues and deliberations. That has changed. So it could be Steve Bannon, it could be whoever his national security advisor is. As you know, Michael Flynn just resigned, and who steps into that position could play a key role. The Secretary of Defense, Treasury, State could play a key role. Family members could play key roles. These are all possibilities, and it may even vary from issue to issue, from day to day.
He's talked of taking on ISIS. Do you expect on the issue of Islamic State and terrorism, could he send troops to Syria or to Iraq?
It's conceivable, but unlikely. Like so many issues, it may depend on who has his ear, but Trump has generally spoken in terms of America first, in the sense of valuing our own priorities above all others, but not getting directly involved in conflicts. It's conceivable we'll see more bombing, but not necessarily troops on the ground. He certainly is talking a tough game, but whether that will translate into more troops on the ground, I would see as doubtful, but not impossible right now. We'll see who has his ear on this, though, because, as I've said before, it depends on which advisor might be making statements or getting control or not control, influence on a given issue. His general inclination has been to stay away from heavy U.S. on-the-ground involvement. He's claimed that the U.S. has wasted trillions of dollars on Middle Eastern wars, criticizing previous Republican presidents, well, President Bush in particular, about this. So for him to repeat that action doesn't necessarily make sense. It could be that there'll be more bombing or more secret raids, but not actually massive influxes of U.S. troops.
You know, Pakistan has a huge constituency in the Pentagon and the State Department because they've had many years of interaction. So in that sense, it would represent an interest which would be keen to ensure that Pakistan stays on the same radar as they have in all these years. And that's the apprehension here.
Well, certainly I can understand that apprehension, and certainly as one very preliminary indication of the stance Trump might take. Don't make too much of this, but he did announce a ban on people coming in from 7 different predominantly Muslim countries to the U.S. A temporary ban on that. It's since been blocked by the courts, but those 7 countries did not include Pakistan. Yeah. And that may be an indication of things to come, or it could just be an indication of people just not settled into their jobs yet and influencing him in ways that could affect U.S. policy towards Pakistan and many other matters going forward.
You know, there is a sense in India that we are relying far too much on the U.S. to deal with the problem in our own backyard. And we should be far more forthcoming in terms of sorting out Pakistan. Is that a valid view? I mean, how would you, as an expert in the US, look at this?
Something I hope to see from India is that even as US democracy is going through such incredible stress and strains with Donald Trump coming to the fore, I'm hoping that India, for all the challenges your country and democracy faces, can play a more prominent role in keeping with your increasingly important role on the world stage, already a major power, a major influence, but as the world's largest democracy, standing up for some basic democratic principles and practices, especially in view of the fact that they may be under threat in my own country. The highest hopes and the best wishes for your country in terms of your democracy and influence in a very positive way on democracy around the world going forward.
What's the view of Narendra Modi in the US?
To be frank, there's such low information about so many world leaders in the US that even someone as important as Modi, the view of him is very limited. Most Americans could not name the Prime Minister of India. They might know, they will know where India is, but even someone as important as that, they couldn't name the Prime Minister's name. They couldn't name the Prime Minister of Britain, or the President of France, or the Prime Minister of Japan, or many other important countries as well. It's not just India. It's a reflection of the level of knowledge that, for better or worse, many of my fellow citizens have about the world.
We'll take a short break. You're watching Straight Talk.